So far I've talked about Super Mario Bros. Super Show, Captain N, Mega Man, Battletoads, Zelda, etc. But this next one is a certain show based off a video game franchise I've never reviewed before. And which one, you ask? Well, I'll give you a hint. You guessed it, a certain video game franchise that is well known to this day. And that, my friends, is Pokemon, aka Pocket Monsters in Japan. The person behind this is Satoshi Tajiri. Yes, folks, he is the man who created Pokemon, or Pocket Monsters. It is a video game by Nintendo for the Game Boy, then it was adapted into an anime series. When I first saw Pokemon, it was seen on the Nintendo Power magazine that I got back in middle school of 1998. I used to remember the Pokemon anime comics were included, called Pokemon Power, which featured tips and strategies for the Pokemon Red and Blue versions. As a kid, I was totally hooked with this franchise. Hell, I have a shitload of Pokemon stuff, like the video games, the toys, the books, you name it. I remember coming home from school, I turned on the TV watching this show. I even recorded a shitload of episodes, then I stopped recording them in 2004. But enough of this shindig, let us begin episode 50, shall we, ladies and gentle Pokemon fans? Now before I talk about the show, let's talk about the characters. First, we'll start with Ash Ketchum, the hero of this anime from Pallet Town, who wants to be a Pokemon master. In the game, he's called Red, and his voice in Japanese was provided by Rika Matsumoto, who you may know her as the voice of Seaman on Yu Yu Hakusho, and in the English dub, Veronica Taylor, who did the voice of Botan and Yukina in the second movie, Poltergeist Report. She also voiced on Fighting Foodons and April O'Neil in the 2003 Ninja Turtles animated series. In the later seasons, Ash's second voice in the dub is now done by Saranato Sheni. Next, we got Misty, the Cerulean City's gym leader. She meets Ash and follows him on his adventure until he can pay her back for the bike that was damaged from Pikachu's Thundershock. She does forget about her bike and becomes close friends with Ash. Plus, she's a stubborn tomboy. Well, it's true! Oh, and she has a fear of... take a wild guess.
Please don't come any closer to me!
That's right, my friends, bug-type Pokemon, and her voice in Japanese is provided by Mayumi Izuka, and in English, Rachel Lillis, who did voices on Sonic X, Slayers, and Revolutionary Girl Utena. Then we got Brock, the Pewter City's gym leader. He also joins Ash on his adventure, plus he's a good cook, he wants to be a Pokemon breeder, he takes care of not 10, 9 siblings, and he has a weakness for girls, mostly Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny. Plus, his voice in Japanese is provided by Yuji Ueda, and in the English dub done by Eric Stewart, who you know him as the voice of King DDD on Kirby Right Back At Ya, King Muscle on Ultimate Muscle, Seto Kaiba on Yu-Gi-Oh! He also voiced on Giant Robo, the anime, and the 2003 Ninja Turtle series. In later seasons, Brock's second voice is done by Bill Rogers. Next we got Gary Oak, who is the grandson of Professor Oak and Ash's rival in the first few seasons. Also in the games, his name is Blue. Now, about Gary. Well, he claims to be the best, has this typical smug attitude, has fangirls, and a fan club to go along with it. He does become less prideful and arrogant later on in the anime, and his voice in Japanese is provided by Yuko Kobayashi, who voiced on Dragon Ball Z, and his English voice is done by Jimmy Zopi, who voiced on Yu-Gi-Oh!, Slayers, Fighting Foodons, Sonic X, Revolutionary Girl Utena, and also worked for Central Park Media, Media Blasters, etc., and he voiced James, Professor Oak, and Meowth in Season 9 and onwards. Moving on to Professor Oak, the Pokemon researcher. He is once a competitive trainer, and he is Gary Oak's grandfather, plus his voice in Japanese is done by Unsho Ishizuka, and in English provided by Stan Hart, but his real name is Stuart Zagnut, who voiced on Slayers and the 4Kids adaptation of Winx Club. Delia Ketchum, Ash's mother. She is sometimes strict and reminds Ash to change his underwear every day. How can you not forget? She's also a good cook and can cook anything, including her most famous dishes such as double deep dish pizza pot pie. Mwah! She also has Mr. Mime, aka Mimey, to clean up the house later on in the anime, and her voice in Japanese is done by Masami Toyoshima, and in English, Veronica Taylor and Saranato Sheni. Nurse Joy, who is the nurse of the Pokemon Center who can heal any Pokemon at perfect health. And you may think there is only one Nurse Joy, right?
No!
They're everywhere. Why, you ask? 'Cause they're related, or maybe she cloned herself. Though they may look identical, but they sound identical because they're voiced by the same person, and her Japanese voice is provided by Ayako Shiraishi, and in English, Megan Holling-Shayed, who voiced Cassidy in the first 5 seasons, Whitney and Claire, the 2 gym leaders from the Johto regions, and Lily, one of the Cerulean sisters. She also voiced Mai Valentine on Yu-Gi-Oh!, also voiced on Bleach, Code Geass, Fighting Foodons, Gurren Lagann, Shaman King, Higurashi, and Hentai. Yes, folks, there are Pokemon voice actors and actresses in English who dub hentai, like Dan Green, for example. Her second voice for Seasons 7 and 8 was done by Bella Hudson, who voiced Luffy in the 4Kids version of One Piece. I am not making that shit up, it's true. Her third voice was provided by Michelle Knotts, who voiced on Queen's Blade, the Genshiken OVA, and Ikki Tosen Dragon Destiny. And her fourth voice was done by Allison Leigh Rosenfeld, who was new to the Pokemon anime at the time. And last, this brings us to Officer Jenny, a female police officer who is seen in every city, and like Nurse Joy, they're everywhere. But unlike the Joys, there are some minor differences on the Jennies depending on the regions. Not to mention they did have blue hair, originally, but changed to green when the animation changes, and her voice in Japanese was done by Chinami Nishimura, and in English, Lee Quick in Seasons 1 through 6, Jamie Davies Owens in Seasons 7 and 8, Jamie Peacock in Mastermind of Mirage Pokemon, Emily Williams in Seasons 9 through 13, and Emily Jennis, who started voicing the characters in the middle half of Season 9. Well, that wraps up the first part of my 50th episode. Stay tuned as I talk about... Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.